A manga becoming an anime is something every manga author, artist, and reader dreams of. And Pokémon Adventures is exactly the same, with the dream of an anime being just so close, always so far. Many fans have had hopes of it happening one day, and that includes me. But other fans have reached despair in the thought that it can never happen, and that also includes me. But for this video, I'm going to be contradicting myself and trying to come up with a way that Pokémon Adventures can finally become an anime. Will it be through a main series anime like Ash and Liko, or will it be through an entirely different route? Let's discuss. Our first possible route for a Pokémon Adventures anime is, like I mentioned before, a Pokémon Adventures main series anime, taking the form of something similar to Ash and Liko. Instead of following one trainer through many regions like what we've had with Ash, this series would switch protagonists every season, which would represent the arcs of the series. For example, the red, green and blue arc would be season 1, and the yellow arc would be season 2, and so forth. Pretty much just the same as how they title each of the arcs in Japan. Or in a more extreme scale, we could have longer arcs split into more seasons. A user on the Pokémon Adventures Reddit known as Sun Luffy has been doing exactly that, creating a conceptual episode listing for how a series could look. However, if we're being realistic, this route is least likely to ever happen. Pokemon's a game series first that adapted itself into an anime and manga, so the manga now getting an anime of its own would be kind of pointless. It doesn't need two main animes, especially when you consider the one that already exists is super popular and successful. Another downside to a main series Pokémon Adventures anime comes from the fact that it's already way behind the games and current anime. So they'd either have to start from the beginning of the series with Red, which chances are wouldn't pander to the newer audience of children as they would want to see stuff similar to what they're playing. But if they wanted to make an anime on Scarlet and Violet, they'd be way too fast for the manga to keep up and have to resort in filler, which would ruin the pacing of the anime, just like what would happen with old animes. On the topic of filler, one thing to keep in mind, although Pokemon's one of the best-selling franchises, a lot of the money they earn probably doesn't go to the anime production, instead mainly going to the promotion of it. As we see with the studio who produced the anime, OLM, they seem to be still struggling after the effects of the pandemic, as we see with the final episodes of Journeys being swamped with loads of fillers and recaps, most likely due to understaffing and low pay. And even now with Horizons, the breaks continue to happen, which is not a problem at all, since the anime has always come first. But with this being the case, pushing another main series anime onto them definitely wouldn't work out, time-wise and quality-wise, unless they decided to give it to a different studio. Our next choice is my personal favourite, being a smaller scale series, something like Pokemon Chronicles or Evolutions. This would be presented as certain scenes and events from the manga being animated. Pretty simple. Chances are they would use fan favourite moments or popular scenes and make a 12-episode miniseries. It's a small bit but goes a long way. Pokemon Origins, Generations, and even Evolutions all have a ton of views and comments, with people loving the fact that their favourite scenes from the games now are being animated, giving fans new and old a new perspective on the limited cutscenes of the games. So doing the same for the manga would be a no-brainer in my opinion. Even if someone didn't know everything about Pokemon Adventures, they'd still be able to understand at a basic level of what's going on. If you were a fan of Pokemon, you'd be able to understand, let's say episode 8 of Generations, without even having to play the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire games. And even if you still didn't understand what was going on, at least seeing cool scenes like Gold's encounter with Arceus animated would really make you want to read the story and find out what's going on. I think Evolution's formula works the best for Pokemon Adventures, so 8 episodes that are around 7 minutes long each. If I were to pick 8 episodes, I'd say only cover the ones from the first 3 generations, mainly due to the Pokemon Company and Viz seeming to favour them over the other arcs, proven by the collector's edition only covering those 3 generations. As for my picks, I'd say episode 1 would be called A Glimpse of the Glow, starting the series off with an animated version of the first chapter or 2. This makes the most sense to me and would set a good standard of what to expect from the remaining 7 episodes. Episode 2 would be a Charizard and a Champion. After the introductory episode, it may seem weird to skip all the way to the end of the arc, but remember we only have 8 episodes to work with, so covering Red and Blue's final battle seems to be pretty essential to me. For episode 3 we have the Legend. I know it's another final battle, but they just work perfectly for these kind of things. This episode would be about the final battle of the Yellow arc, Yellow vs Lance atop Cerise Island. Episode 4 would be called The Hatcher. Instead of focusing on the last battle of the Gold, Silver and Crystal arc, instead this episode would focus on Gold vs the Masked Man, with him losing the battle but realizing his ability as the Hatcher, ending with his Pichu's egg hatching. For episode 5, we have Confession on the battlefield. For the Ruby and Sapphire arc, having this episode focus on the bond between Ruby and Sapphire feels like a no-brainer to me. Starting the episode right before the confession, then having a flashback to their past, and ending the episode with the confession itself. For episode 6, we have the final battle, Fire Red and Leaf Green's dedicated episode. This would of course cover Red and Mewtwo versus Giovanni and Deoxys. Seeing this animated, especially if done by a good studio, would be just a spectacle to witness. For the last 2 episodes, they'd kind of act like a two-parter, with episode 7 being called The True Eye. This episode would focus on Emerald's backstory and him making the wish to Jirachi to save the other dex holders. And then for the final episode, episode 8, this would be called Assembly of the 10. Pretty much just the end of the Emerald arc, including the ultimate moves against Kyogre. And of course the epilogue of the arc with Red suggesting a tournament. And that's my idea for how a Pokemon Adventures anime could work, or at least my favorite idea. Also, it should go without saying, I expect some good animation on these episodes. If they're going to be short episodes, they're going to have to be crazy good, just like what we see with Evolutions. Just commission a good studio and let them have time to cook, and we could see a masterpiece so good that it issues a sequel later down the line. I think it works as a perfect test to tell if a Pokemon Adventures anime could perform well. And now for my final idea, which is a bit of a different one, but also quite possible. And that's the idea of a 30th anniversary project, similar to the likes of the Gotcha music video. In 3 years, Pokemon Adventures will be celebrating its 30th anniversary. And whilst the series' other anniversaries do usually happen with not much attention, for its 20th anniversary we got a poster, data book and illustration book. So who's to say for the big 30 we can't see something more special? Which is why I got the idea for a music video. Get a band to sing a song and we get to see an animated music video of some of the best moments in the manga. It's definitely no anime adaptation, but at this point I feel like fans would take anything. After all, some promotion is still good promotion. The manga, however, also shares a very close anniversary of the anime, so anything high budget animation wise might go to their side. For the anime's 20th anniversary, they got a movie, and we got books. I sound super ungrateful right now, but this is just my passion for the manga to get something bigger and better. But these 3 options are just my ideas, so I thought, hey, why not just go see what the other people in the community think of these ideas? So I headed down to the Pokemon Adventures Reddit and asked, if Pokemon Adventures were to get an anime, how would you like it to be structured? Main series style like the current anime, or something Generations or Evolution style? Or maybe something completely different? I'm not going to read all the replies, but here are some of the ones I liked. Hot take, I don't want an anime if it's not Generations or Evolution style. Having it be a main series while we have an original series would be stupid. Also, side note, I really like all your Pokespe videos. They're great. Honestly, this is a fair point. 2 main series competing with each other wouldn't make much sense, and it'd probably just confuse people, make them think they're the same canon. Also, thanks. Netflix series exclusive, so we can do as many episodes needed for each season as that varies each arc. A Netflix series is a route I never thought of, but it works out almost perfectly. First of all, Netflix and Pokemon are no strangers to working together. A lot of the movies are over there, as well as their 2 originals with Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution and Pokemon Concierge, so this partnership has no problems there. Also, Netflix is already more catered to an older audience, so this would allow for more scenes in the manga to go through without having to worry about censorship. I am aware though that Netflix hasn't had the best track record to when it comes to their exclusives, whether it's live action, CGI or animated. But if they're willing to take on the manga, I wouldn't complain too much. I would love a main series in which every season covers an arc, similar to JoJo, and maybe for the shorter arcs we could have movies instead. I'm just dreaming, I know. With that profile picture, the JoJo idea isn't a surprise. But being fair, many others found the JoJo route to be best. What really catches my eye though is the idea of having short arcs be a movie. This would be so cool to see, since you'd have an arc like Platinum end, then have it hype up the Heart Gold Soul Silver movie. A seasonal anime where each season adapts one arc fully. Seasonal animes are actually a good shout, especially nowadays as that's how most animes are done. The user named Zephyrus actually further expanded on this idea. Would have been great if it was a long-running series that started a few years after the manga, filler and all, but that ship's definitely sailed. Best approach nowadays would be a seasonal anime with 25 episodes per season. That would cover an entire chapter. For example, season 1 being the first arc, season 2 being the second arc, and season 3 being the third arc. It might affect the pacing of each arc since 25 episodes isn't nearly enough for some of them, but it's better than the alternatives at least. Starting a big ongoing weekly series in 2024 isn't very ideal anymore, and a Netflix produced series would probably just result in an 8 to 10 hour-ish long episode being dropped every 1 to 2 years. 2 other users also made posts that I think can combo well with these ideas. Or they could just use the Pokemon special characters to make an original story. I think it would be interesting if there was an anime that combined Pokemon special characters with school life. I would want it to be like how Digimon Adventures Tri did it. Each arc having its own movie or a bulk of episodes, then release each once or twice a year. And maybe this is the best option. Taking the essence of Pokemon Adventures and making it a more modern day adaptation wouldn't be such a bad idea. Since then, they don't have to worry too much about following the plot perfectly, whilst also fitting more content in than a simple evolution story. Just skip some stuff and trim out some other stuff, and you'd have a pretty good adaptation on your hands. At the end of the day, Pokemon likes money, and because of that, they probably won't invest into an anime for the manga, or anything of the sorts. So we should probably stop coping and just continue reading the series. But if you think I'm wrong, or if you have any other ideas on how a Pokemon Adventures anime could work, with things such as voice actors and animation studios included, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be sure to read them and reply. With that said, I'll catch you all in the next video. Take care.